marking the anniversary of the historic call for the agreement to end hostilities between all races, which was called for on August 12th, 2013. And you'll hear parts of that in the play, but there's also a sheet of paper in the back there that lists, it's the entire sheet. It's worth reading. So I hope you'll pick that up. There'll also be a chance afterwards to have discussion. We'll talk about this. There'll be a chance to take action. There's sheets of paper on how to become a pen pal for people. One of the things is that people who are kept in solitary would love to hear from people. So if you're interested in becoming a pen pal, there's an opportunity to do that. One of the big things that's happening right now, we'll hear from one of our readers today talk about solitary confinement for juveniles and youth. And there's SB 124, which is going through the Assembly Ways and Means Committee next week. It's a possibility. There's an opportunity to contact Jimmy Gomez, who's the Speaker of the Appropriations Committee, to get it out of, to take it out of suspense so it goes before the full committee and into the Assembly, fourth year in a row, to cut back solitary confinement for juveniles to no more than 4 hours a day, which is 4 hours too much, but it's a step in the right direction. So we urge you to stick around afterwards, and I'm going to let you now listen to If the Shoe Fits. Thank you.
All I have is this pen, this paper, and the truth. I write to you as a survivor of torture, soon to experience more, in hopes that you will use my account here as you see fit to shed a light on the use of torture in the United States. My name is Sean Swain, Mansfield Correctional Institute, Ohio.
My name is JRF, within a cage. How can you lock me in a cage for some misdeed done within a cage? All you can do is feed my rage. You can't teach me anything good within a cage, except monsters control the locks, and in terror I have lost the keys within a cage. I plead and pray, but it simply gets worse every day within a cage. Animosity worsens, empathy is lost, and the days turn into days within a cage.
In Oregon, long-term isolation units are called intensive management units, IMUs. In Pennsylvania, they're called restricted housing units, RHUs. In California and New York, they are security housing units, or SHUs. California and other states also use another euphemism, administrative segregation. Despite the variety of names, the general practice of incarceration in these units and facilities are solitary confinement. Let's see if the shoe fits. Statement from Pelican Bay Shoe Short Corridor Collective.
Torture is unequivocally unacceptable under all circumstances.
But what has been unfolding in the SHU is a systematic use of torture by the state for years and decades.
Torture of both minds and bodies.
Of many thousands of prisoners.
To break them.
To either have them die in long-term solitary confinement or be driven insane through the psychological torture of years and decades of isolation.
We call for an end to all violence and hostilities between different groups of prisoners throughout the state of California, including those in the SHU, ADSEG, general population, and county jails, beginning October 12, 2012.
We simply cannot allow CDCR, CCPOA, Prison Guards Union,
IGI,
IGU,
OCS,
and SSU to continue to get away with their constant form of warehousing of tens of thousands of prisoners, including 14,000 plus prisoners held in solitary confinement torture chambers for decades.
We can no longer allow CDCR to use us against each other for their benefit, because the reality is that collectively we are an empowered, mighty force that can positively change this entire corrupt system into a system that actually benefits prisoners and thereby the public as a whole.
The people have the power to change things now.
Know this, our spirit and resolve remain strong, and we know we can count on you all. Together we can make it happen.
Not only for ourselves, but more importantly, for the generations to come.
With the utmost solidarity, love, and respect, onward and struggle. Pelican Bay State Prison Short Corridor Collective.
Arturo Castellanos, Short Corridor Collective.
Antonio Guillen, Short Corridor Collective.
Situa Natambu Jamal, slave name R.N. Dewberry, Short Corridor Collective.
Todd Ashker, Short Corridor Collective. My name's Todd Ashker. They're never going to let me out. I'm going to die here, I know that. But I have a choice. I can slowly rot, or I can fight. Fight to change things.
Pelican Bay State Prison, PBSP, is a supermax prison in Crescent City, California, explicitly designed to keep California's alleged worst of the worst prisoners in long-term solitary confinement. It takes its name from a shallow bay on the Pacific coast about 2 miles to the west, and the prison lies in a detached section of Crescent City that is several miles north from the main urban area.
The heat inside the bus was as stifling as the tension in the surrounding atmosphere. As the bus roared angrily down Highway 101, the trance-inducing drone of the big diesel engine lulled me into memories of my life. Memories flew past like the scenery flying by outside the barred tinted windows of anonymous gray goose, and as swiftly as the life I'd lived thus far. The restless, dismal chimes of the shackles and chains broke me away from the melancholy spell I'd come under. What remained and followed is the realization that the world of oceans and mountains and landscapes was about to become a memory, but a memory of another lifetime. Looking around me, I found myself not to be alone in this realization, for the other prisoners seemed to be entertaining similar thoughts, although no one dared to speak them.
What awaited us at Pelican Bay SHU with its eerie silent corridors was a purgatory of sorts, a vacuum of uncertainty sealed off from everything and everyone. A place where one is virtually entombed in a concrete vault with scarred and pitted walls depicting the idleness, boredom, and in some cases, the lunacy of previous occupants.
It's a world of its own, where for most, refuge can only be found in a sleepless state of slumber.
There is a look in the SHU prisoner's eyes that is haunting. A four-body look from eyes that have themselves stared into the eyes of madness and human cruelty, eyes that have looked far into the abyss of emptiness, eyes belonging to a species of a lesser God. My name is Hector Gallegos, Pelican Bay State Prison.
Prisoners in the SHU are there for varying lengths of time and placed there for varying reasons. If one has committed a specific crime or broken a prison rule, he's given a determined amount of time in administrative segregation. But for those who have been accused of gang affiliation, also known as validation, their sentence is open-ended and indeterminate. Often, the only way for them to get out of the SHU is to debrief, and that is to name others who have gang affiliation.
My name is Siswa Jamal, slave name R.N. Dewberry. KDK, CDC, has held me in solitary confinement for the past 28 years for my political beliefs and spiritual morality as a new African revolutionary nationalist, NARN. If I undergo their debriefing, to which I have refused to do for the past 28 years, and shall not change my mind, I ask myself, what weight does customs hold under the law? For though it may be termed debriefing, using a euphemism does not change what it is, betraying a confidence, committing an act of treachery for use of personal gain. Considering how our community in the U.S. was brought into being and considering the command and control needs which existed from the get-go. If any community has historical aversion to stoolies, tattlers, rats, and the like, isn't it ours? Therefore, I shall die before my tormentors, CDC, KDK, U.S. government, turn this freedom fighter into a debriefer. I shall never be found among the broken men of my era.
Before they cage the body, they cage the mind. They capture the soul by breaking the spirit with negative thoughts of nothing. Can you cage a thought or capture the wind? It's not the prison guards with guns, with inmates and convicts who refuse to become one. No positive light, with prisoners caged, the locks of the mind, negativity and self-hate are refusing to be a positive light, jealous of the next person because he wants to live right. Like a person without sight, darkness into the middle of the night. The real prisons are scales of the mind, locks of negativity standing in place and marking time. Those who challenge every positive thought, ask them why. Is it to hold you back? Without a doubt. But it is the system that caged the body, but first they caged the mind. You hold the key to a positive mentality. Free yourself with positive thoughts. Don't be afraid to dream. Don't let your dreams become a nightmare. Negative thoughts are prisons of the mind, standing in place and marking time. Like a darkness of a soul, a ball of confusion, the truth must be told. Can't you see? Only the truth can make you free. Positive thoughts are healing for the soul. Free the mind and the body will follow. Before they cage the body, they cage the mind. It's not the prison guard with the gun, but inmates and convicts who refuse to become one. Negative thoughts are nothing. Taking honey from a bee make you kill your brother because you failed to see. Look in the mirror and see yourself. But you hold the key to a positive mentality. That's the key. So unlock the door and come back to me. Merge with the totality of mentality. Take a vacation from madness, a trip from sadness, see the light, hope, and gladness. Days without night. Can you cage a thought or capture the wind? It's all an illusion, but I'll say it again. Can you cage a thought or capture the wind?
Herman Wallace was a courageous fighter for justice, a political prisoner who this system has locked up in conditions of torture and solitary confinement for 41 years.
If it is death, if death is the realm of freedom, then to death I escape to freedom, which is a quote from Franz Fanon. The title of this poem is A Defiant Voice. They remove my whisper from general population to maximum security. I gained a voice. They removed my voice from maximum security to administrative segregation. My voice gave hope. They removed my voice from administrative segregation to solitary confinement. My voice became vibrations for unity. They removed my voice from solitary confinement to supermax of Camp J, and they wish to destroy me. The louder my voice, the deeper they bury me. I said, the louder my voice, the deeper they bury me. We are all political prisoners, prisoners of war, prisoners of consciousness. I am Herman Wallace of the Angola 3.
On October 1st, 2013, Herman Wallace was finally freed after a federal judge ruled that his original indictment in the killing of a prison guard had been unconstitutional. 3 days later, on a Friday morning, October 4th, 2013, Herman Wallace died of cancer in New Orleans. He was 71. This is the reality of isolation.
I awoke to the sound of heavy raindrops pounding down on the steel bars of my captivity, only to smell within my memory the sweet scent of freedom being pumped through my cell from an outside vent. The wet grass and smell of moist dirt was in my nostrils, reassuring me that concrete is only a man-made hell to deprive me of happiness once taken for granted. My name is Jack Morris.
I never seen the sky, felt the warmth of the sun, trees, grass, or raindrop. I never knew how painful it could be to be denied nature itself. I had a small, narrow window that does not open, but all I could see was brick walls and nothing more. And I remember a small plant growing from within the cracks of the bricks. This was my only part of nature that gave me hope. As the wind would blow against the leaves of this plant, I would actually close my eyes and pretend that very wind was blowing against my face. Now I know this sounds crazy, but it's the only part of nature that I had. And then one day, I could not stand it any longer, and I so desperately need to feel real air that I began to scrape the seal of the window with my fingertips. I was determined to make an opening. For 3 months of every day, I scraped and I scraped where my fingers bleeded. I finally managed to make a very small opening. And there was only room to press one side of my nose against this opening at a time. And I would take such a deep breath that I finally managed to inhale a very small amount of air. But it's all I needed in order to survive. The officers there, they felt sorry for me. They brought me paper and a pen to keep myself busy with being I had nothing. And this is where I learned to draw on paper, and from there is how I became an artist. Now, I never in my life knew how to draw, couldn't draw a heart to save myself. But after 3 years of living in a cage, being locked like an animal, instead of letting it get to me, I put all my paper, all my pain on this paper, and before I knew it, I had art. And this letter is from a 45-year-old mother of 3 housed in a segregation unit of a New Jersey state prison.
Living life in solitary confinement has been the most horrendous experience I have had to endure in all my 43 years on this earth. I have been in prison for 15 years, 13 of them in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is designed to dehumanize, cause a person to become dependent, and spiritually break an inmate to the core of his soul. Each and every day that comes and goes takes a piece of humanity away from me, to the point I don't really know who I am. The lack of human contact I have with other inmates is like being thrown into a black hole and completely forgotten. I haven't been able to hug, kiss, or hold a family member in over 14 years. I'm not able to receive visits from my wife or have any time of real quality time with my loved ones. I'm stuck, alone, and have very few words I can speak with other human beings. I'm forced to eat every day, every meal, exercise, and play games by myself. I laugh at myself sometimes because it's the only voice I can hear. My own shadow has literally become my only friend. If and when I get the opportunity to speak with my wife, mom, or loved ones, I have to put on a mask with a smile, because I never want them to see the monster I'm becoming by the psychological damage created by solitary confinement. I live each day contemplating death, throwing in the towel and just calling it quits. A person can only take so much loneliness. My name is Toby Chavez, New Mexico Penitentiary.
The shoe on the mind is like drowning or being caught in quicksand. When you first realize your plight, you struggle, you fight with all your might to save yourself. But at some point you realize that your ultimate demise is but a matter of time. And your fate is irreversible. So you let go. Hopelessness sets in. Believing that no one can hear you, no one can help you, and no one cares. You're so mentally worn out and emotionally exhausted that you cannot even help yourself. That sense of helplessness is the final distress that befalls the long-term shoe prisoner before the cruel and stupid sadistic part of it all begins the descent into madness. Shoe syndrome now is when you begin to live and adapt. When you begin to live and adapt to the distorted world of the shoe in order to survive, exist, one must distort his mind to make an abnormal existence normal. It's the vision of reality. As you must adjust your eyes to see the light so that you can focus on that which is around you, so must a shoe prisoner distort his mind in order to bring into focus his new reality. One cannot hold on to normalcy, for normal in an abnormal world is craziness. This fact is the battle of the shoe prisoner's soul, the death grip of sanity. The irony of it all is that for the shoe prisoner to hold to his sanity, he must embrace and accept his insanity. It's been said for hundreds of years that those whom the gods would destroy, first they drive mad. That's the shoe objective. My name is Martin Bibbs.
My name is Daryl Burnett, Pelican Bay State Prison. Despite the mental, emotional, and physical challenges of enduring life inside these concrete tombs, based solely on the politics of paranoia and presumptions of guilt, my spirit remains undauntedly resilient, free and strong. I too consider myself progressive, and being warehoused inside these modern dungeons for almost 4 decades does not define my identity nor personhood. I reject the dehumanizing, demonizing, and denigrating labels of language that marginalizes my work as a human being to be no more valuable than a chimpanzee or other captive species imprisoned at the city zoo. Dr. Martin Luther King once said,
Every step towards the goal of justice requires sacrifice, suffering, and struggle. The tireless exertion and passionate concern of dedicated individuals. On many levels, Dr. King would be disappointed, especially when his life and legacy has become so marginalized, as if he was a new age Santa Claus. He is only relegated to the I have a dream speech. He is portrayed as less critical, less challenging, less provocative. He would probably feel betrayed by some of the men who stood shoulder to shoulder with him, but now misuse his name for personal gain and ambitions. No one ever speaks about his position on war, poverty, and hunger. He would probably be disappointed at the indifference, the lack of intolerance, mistrust, fear-mongering, economic inequalities, mass incarceration, economic disparities, homelessness, torture, senseless wars, and racial profiling. I think that we honor his legacy by continuing to finish his unfinished work.
What about the families of those locked up in these tombs for the living dead? How does being isolated from their loved ones affect them? Many of them do continue to work.
My name is Alex Sanchez. Thank you all, the families, members that are here and have loved ones inside the prison. In 1993, there was a truce among the gangs. We know that getting people involved to do gang violence prevention in our communities have to come from people who used to be part of the problem.
My name is Marie Levin. My brother is Sitwa Jamal, who is in the SHU in Pelican Bay. Today is day 24 of this historic hunger strike of prisoners held in solitary confinement. The 5 core demands are just human things that you and I respect. Each group, in-group punishment, and administrative abuse, abolish the debriefing policy, and modify the gang status criteria. comply with the UN Commission recommendations to end long-term solidarity confinement, provide nutritious food, create and expand constructive programs.
My name is Irene Huerta, and I am the wife of Gabriel Huerta. My husband has been held in Pelican Bay Prison for 28 years, and I stand proud because he did 3 of the hunger strikes. I told them that DCDC would not let us continue the fight, and here we are, continuing the fight. I want to say thank you to all of the families.
My name is Georgiana Williams. My oldest son is in the SHU at Pelican Bay. You worry day by day if your child is all right. You can't visit them because they're so far away. They can't call you. All you can do is write. And you wonder if they're alive or if they're dead. And the only thing I can do is just pray.
All I have is this pen, this paper, and the truth. I write to you as a survivor of torture, soon to experience more, in hopes that you would use my account here as you see fit, to shed a light on the use of torture in the United States. When you give your government your passive consent to torture anyone, you have relinquished power to your government to torture everyone. Your government subjected me to torture. I am first, you're next.
During one retaliatory stint in segregation, I learned of torture cell 182. I do not know the name of the man who was in that cell, the cell next to mine. He spoke only broken English. His cell had no bed. He had no toothbrush, no cloth, no soap. The temperature was uncomfortably cold for me with all my clothing and wrapped in a blanket. So the victim in torture cell 182, to keep from experiencing hypothermia, had to pace 24 hours a day, all night, all day, for days. I came back to Mansfield Correctional in 2009 and was placed on the gang list for my religious belief. I was taken to a row of cells behind the medical clinic. The cell I was placed in had no bed, no mattress, just like my neighbor long ago in torture cell 182. I had to pace 24 hours a day to stay warm. I could not sleep. I survived. Since September, 2 other of the state's victims have not. I do not know their names, but 2 prisoners have died on torture cell row since I was fortunate to be removed from there. They died perhaps pacing the same cold cement floor that I paced, hour after hour, day after day, feeling 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard. I now face the rest of my life in Supermax, locked in a concrete tomb, dying in complete isolation. I have been approved to be transferred to this torture facility by psychological professionals who affirm that I am sane enough to be driven crazy.
Last night, another girl hung herself. As they drug her body out of her cell and down the stairs and put her on the stretcher, it occurred to me that it's become so common that it hurts. I woke up out of my sleep and got off my bunk, got a sip of water and looked out the window. And there they were silently dragging her out. No alarm, no sense of emergency or urgency. Just your run-of-the-mill, ordinarily scheduled suicide. Nothing special going on here, just all in a day's work. I laid in bed praying her spirit would fight for her life, since she obviously didn't have the strength to fight for it herself. By the time breakfast rolled around, her bed was already filled by a new inmate, like rotating cattle. And it's frustrating because what one person can I be angry with? I feel like an itty bitty worm on a big ass hook. I may not like the women around me. I may not even speak to many. But I never, for one tiny second, never ever do I forget that we are all in this struggle together. Each of these women is a part of me. Each one worthy of better than this.
56-year-old Jerome Murdo, a mentally ill, homeless military, died in Riker Island solitary confinement jail cell in February 15th of 2014. Murdo had been arrested and charged with trespassing after being discovered sleeping in an enclosed stairwell on the roof of a public housing project in East Harlem. According to city officials, Murdo was incarcerated alone in a 6-foot by 10 feet cinder block cell at Rikers Island Mental Observation Unit at about 10:30 on February 14, 2014, a week after his arrest. There, he was supposed to be monitored every 15 minutes as part of a suicide watch. But he was left unattended for about 4 hours. At about 2:30 a.m. the next morning, he was discovered slumped over on his bed, already dead. Officials estimate the temperature in his cell reached over 100 degrees. He basically baked to death. He was a military veteran who served this country. He died in solitary confinement.
Juan Mendez, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture and Cruel and Inhuman Degrading Treatment, presented a written report on solitary confinement to the UN General Assembly's Human Rights Committee, which singled out for criticism the routine use of supermax isolation in the United States. Mendez stated, "I am of the view that juveniles, given their physical and mental immaturity, should never be subjected to solitary confinement."
My name is Davon Williams. I am a member of the Youth Justice Coalition. During my time of incarceration, when I was 18, I was placed into solitary confinement 2 weeks, 24 hours a day. I have epilepsy, and I had a seizure. The guards were called by my cellmates, but they thought I was playing, and I was placed into solitary confinement. From the moment I was put into the hole, I felt isolated and depressed. The room was freezing and it was dirty. There wasn't a bed, only a hard concrete seat built into the wall. The room was very small. Immediately, I felt trapped. There was a tiny window in the door that I would peek out of just to seek outside of the claustrophobic cell. One day, the guard caught me looking outside the window, and he put a paper over it so I could no longer see anything. I hadn't had a shower for the first 4 days after coming into solitary confinement. I smelled myself and started to feel disgusting. I received a change of clothes only once during my 2 weeks in solitary confinement. I was ignored like I didn't even exist. After a few days in solitary confinement, I started to feel like I was going crazy. I started to make up stories and started talking to myself. My imagination was blasted. I look back now and I see how creative the mind can be, but also how dangerous. If a person didn't already have mental health problems before coming into solitary confinement, spending enough time in there, you would lose your sanity. I had several epileptic seizures while in solitary because sometimes they didn't bring me my medicine on the time it was needed, Several times they didn't bring it at all. Stress is one of the main triggers of my seizures. I kept knocking on the door after passing out from having a seizure, but I was ignored. There were no books, no paper, or anything to address my complete boredom of being in the hole. Only 2 or 3 days would pass by and it felt like a week. I would never know whether it was day or night. Being locked down is traumatizing. As human beings, we were treated worse than caged animals. Everybody deserves to keep their sanity, but I felt like mine was slipping away. This was one of the worst experiences in my life. I would never wish this upon anybody. The cruel punishment of solitary confinement must be eliminated. It would be much better to spend time in effective programs that focus on helping people and to grow and change, rather than investing in the torture of isolation. Those people, such as myself, who have experienced solitary confinement, must be given the opportunity to present our observations and solutions. Those most impacted by solitary confinement and our families must be recognized as experts on this issue. Isolation must be erased. But we are fighting back so that no one can erase our memories.
Representative for the Pelican Bay Shoe Corridor Collective, March 2014.
Last summer, we went on a hunger strike. We were willing to starve ourselves to death rather than to continue to endure these dehumanizing conditions any longer. We ended the strike because several compassionate legislators promised to call the hearings that are taking place today. Yet today, the legislators will hear from psychologists, lawyers, other experts, corrections officials, but not from us, who have the most experience with the conditions we face. Because California CDCR prison officials refuse to let us testify, even remotely, via video or audio. It is a sham.
This new reform effort still maintains the basic conditions at Pelican Bay, and will continue to keep prisoners in isolation for vague gang affiliation based on artwork, literature, communications, or informant's testimony that does not meet California's judicial standards for reliability in criminal trials.
We have written petitions and letters to the governor, filed a class action federal lawsuit, and gone on hunger strike seeking real reform, not the bogus reform California officials now propose. It's time for California to fight, to do right things. It's time for the legislators to enact meaningful reform.
What are some of the alternatives to solitary confinement, and what can we do right now?
Something we can do is begin using the Mississippi model, where reform of classification system led to a significant reduction of the solitary confinement population at Parchman State Penitentiary, leading to significant decreases in violence.
Support mental health alternatives to solitary confinement in jails and prisons, including individuals in group therapy, regular access to psychiatrists, substance abuse counseling, specialized psychiatric service units, discharge planning, and community reentry assistance.
Implement training for correctional officers on how to respond to individuals experiencing psychiatric crises in ways that can de-escalate rather than escalate these crises.
Inmates not be placed in isolation longer than 72 hours.
Impose a 7-day limit on supermax stays for inmates being investigated for in-prison crimes.
stop the brutal cell extractions of uncooperative and often mentally ill inmates.
Use informal sanctions such as taking away recreational or commissary privileges to punish unruly prisoners as forms of informal sanctions.
Create an independent monitoring board, IMB, consisting of local volunteers who perform inspections of the facility and submit an annual report.
Juveniles, given their physical and mental immaturity, should never be subjected to solitary confinement.
Meet the 5 core demands of the California hunger strike.
A quote by Fyodor Dostoevsky to remember. The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons.
I shall not die. I shall not die 1,000 deaths of compromise, giving up names in exchange for food or blanket. I will bite my own arm to smother my screams and rob you of the satisfaction when you disassemble me. I shall not die shamefully, my chin against my chest, kneeling before the humiliating hole I dug for myself, waiting upon the pistol shot. I will always refuse the blindfold. I shall not die, abandoned and alone, obliterated from the memories of those I love. My fate never questioned. Someone will always stand in the rain outside your office window. My name on a cardboard sign. No matter how many times you cut my throat or hang me from my own bed sheet, bludgeon me with your nightstick or fire your bullets into my brain. Whether you encircle me in a South African Bantustan or a Coca-Cola factory in Bolivia or an alley behind the stone wall or a prison in the heart of it all, I shall not die. 1,000,000 times I shall not die. You will only get my corpse. My name is Sean Swain. All I have is this pen, this paper, and the truth. Please remember that I live.
My name is Robert Stockton. This is my poem, Living Tomb.
Suddenly we found ourselves without the world's care, where the cold and desolate embrace our stare.
Through endless mazes we walk and change, and with each passing day it seems less and less strange.
With the will not broken, only tested with time, we send words to our loved ones.
We're doing just fine.
There's nothing to compare to it but small personal lives. We do anything to keep away needless tears in their eyes.
No rehabilitation as a castaway, whether young or old, means we're tossed into a place with no hope to hold.
To escape, we walk circles under a steel screen, trying to find a way to kiss the sun's beam.
We stand alone, arguing what to do.
No one really knows the pressures we stood.
Rules come and go, changing direction like the winds. When you think you found comfort, a new struggle begins.
Some stand agitated at the back of their cells.
Some scream out insane with broken up yells.
You might have a glimpse of what we all see.
Or a mental picture of a soul who's not free.
But no one can really see behind the gray walls of gloom.
Or walk where we walk. Embrace by living truth.
I want to introduce the cast, starting on this side, we've got J.C. Cadena, Davon Williams, Alex Sanchez, Adrian Ziegler, Johnny Williams, Anthony Taylor, Steve Beck, and Andrea Ross. I want to introduce also Melvin Johnson, who's the co-compiler with me. Darlene Anthony over here. I also want to remind you that this is for not only for KPFK and for us. I want to remind you that there is a show that's done here on Saturday mornings, and we have the host of that show here, and that is Jerry Silva. Jerry, could you come up here? And we're going to do a collection right now. This is to help fund future performances of this and to support KPFK and the great work that they do, and to make sure that this show keeps going on. What is the name of the show, Jerry? Think Outside the Cage. And it's Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock in the morning. So wake up early and here's the show. We've been on it before, and we hope you'll listen in and support this any way you possibly can. I'm sorry, and of course, thank you to Michael Novik, who helped bring us this, and thank you to the tech crew and everyone for helping us with this. Anybody, we had a great crew here. We had pictures and videos, people taking pictures. I want you to let you know to make sure that if you have any extra pictures, you can send them to us at info@iftheshoefits.net. You can see our website at iftheshoefits.net. And I hope you were all smiling because we even had pictures. We had a little drone up here today, and I hope you were smiling. I'm not sure if it was the NSA or not, or LAPD, but maybe you were on that too. So, but there's lots of material being passed out, the stuff I mentioned about the Pen Pal program. There's information about the end hostility, the agreement to end hostility. We are going to have some chance to discuss this, but I want to bring Big Earn up again to talk about you go Manel and then open it up to questions. So, Big Earn.